What's up, fam? Let me go ahead and lay the agenda or the direction of this conversation now. So, concerning why learning new skills are harder than you think. I want to make a video on this because this is really, I would say, has been one of the most profound discoveries of my life, like in the last year and a half or a couple of years. And that is like the importance of pushing through to learn some new valuable thing that you can bring into like the marketplace that will bring greater contribution and ultimately bring greater contribution to your wallet, your pocketbooks, and to your family, right? So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't tripping over the simplicity of like this thought, like, oh, come on, Justin, you got to be silly. Like, is learning stuff really that difficult? So I asked ChatGPT. I don't know how relevant that is, but I said, is it challenging to learn new skills that build your value in the job market? And Chat responded by saying, learning new skills to build your value in the job market can be challenging, but it's often highly rewarding. The difficulty can stem from various factors, and 4 things were given. And that's what I'm going to talk through a little bit in this video, and definitely would want to know your thoughts on these things. So the first is time commitment, right? Time commitment. So balancing work, personal life, and learning can be difficult. That's something that's often easily overlooked, I believe. So I'll just give you like some of my thoughts, behind this. Let's take inflation, for example, or just companies like increasing prices on things, right? Before we know it, we are paying percentages higher in our expenses without ever realizing it. And our income has not, let's say, kept up with that pace. And so by default, we find ourselves working longer hours to be able to take care of ends meet, right? But with that busyness, it takes away an element that gives you the freedom to slow things down, pick up a book and read it, right? Learn some type of new skill, acquire some new credential that can help open doors for you to embark down a further journey in a career, in a job segment, in an entrepreneurial endeavor. It's time. It's simply time commitment when it comes to actively learning something, right? So I'm not referring to the thought in our head sometimes of, hey, I want to learn how to do coding one day. I want to learn about cybersecurity. I wouldn't mind learning about how to trade stocks and do this investment endeavor. I wouldn't mind learning how to start a business, right? The issue with all of these things is, what average American citizen has time to really take on what it actually takes to learn something new. Going back to school, right? Just watching video after video, ordering books and sitting through and reading and pondering and critically thinking, right? So time commitment is huge. For me, I look to be pretty methodical on my time. And that's not always the easiest thing to do, but I'm mindful of, even though like I'm obviously investing in time with my family, in my job, I also like to be mindful, okay, what am I learning next that's preparing me to get better, right? So like in my tech sales role, okay, I'm doing fine, but what can I learn for the next step? How can I perfect this just a little bit more? Or what new endeavor do I need to embark on that is setting me and my family up to capture another wave of something that can bring some type of, financial reward into my household. Right. The next point, that we can just kind of discuss a little bit is learning curve. Right. Learning curve is something that could cause things to be challenging in learning a new skill. So chat has some skills, especially technical ones, can have steep learning curves. So I've been asked a time or two recently, hey, how are things at your new job? I just started a new job not too long ago. And one of my first responses is it's been a learning curve, right? It's been good. But what I mean, it's really been like a stretch, like mentally. Like, what do you do when you're in a position and you really like don't know how to actually do it, like effectively, like the way that you need to know how to do it, right? And so learning curves sometimes I feel like can steer someone away from even attempting, right? Like, a person might think to themselves, man, it'll be cool to learn how to develop software, right? Like you maybe when people are children or even maybe not children, a person might think, wow, being a doctor or being, an astronaut or being someone who flies planes, like that's for smart people. Like we don't necessarily say that out loud all the time, but subconsciously we think, oh, that's for smart people. But really, it's people who learned how to do it at some point, right? And so learning curves are okay. It's just a matter of accepting a learning curve for what it is and being willing to just get into that curve, hug that curve, and go ahead and get around it, right? And so for me, that's just something that I look to be mindful of in my life, of just knowing where I want to go from a career perspective, so to speak. I do realize that some things are just not simple. I have to invest a lot of time into learning certain skills. It's a sacrifice. It sometimes, or oftentimes takes up portions of my weekend, portions of my evenings, portions of my thoughts when I'm driving a vehicle. But I look to just apply myself to that and just accept it for what it is, because if I'm not willing to go through learning the next thing, then, I wouldn't be in a great position to actually get to that next level, right? So next point of discussion is resources. So chat says access to quality learning materials or courses can be costly or hard to find. Yeah, I can definitely see that, right? Where does a person go when they actually want to learn, back to this example again, how to code? Where does a person go, right? So it's sometimes it can be a challenge for really even knowing where to look to find the information that we feel like we need, or who to even talk to figure out what it is that we don't know, that we haven't even thought to even look to find out, right? So resources is a big one. For me, a way that I guess I feel like I would navigate the resource thing, talking to people, right? So being willing to reach out to people who are doing what it is I would like to do, picking their brain, just asking a real person at times, instead of just learning things from like someone speaking on a video, like the random dude who you're watching right now on YouTube, probably, right? So reach out. I'm pretty sure I'll probably have a link somewhere in the description where I don't mind chatting with you. And then the last point to discuss is consistency. So chat says maintaining motivation and consistency over time requires discipline. My, that is a big one, right? So I'm a content creator, right? Obviously, you're watching the video. That takes a lot of discipline. So I'll just use that as an example, because oftentimes you spend time investing into creativity, making videos, camera setup. What is the thumbnail going to say? What photo are you going to put on the thumbnail? How many photos do you have to take and actually to get to the photo that you want, right? All of these things, you have to be consistent, and you oftentimes won't see a return in that, right? So, but that's just one thing, obviously, out of many things. A lot of times we have to consistently work on perfecting something without actually seeing a return, right? So, like, people work so hard to be a professional athlete. But like, how many years does a professional athlete have to prepare to be a professional athlete, right? Let's say you become a professional athlete when you're 19 years old, where you probably worked from the time you were 5 all the way to the time you were 18. And most people who worked in that time frame at the same time you were working from the age of 5 to 19 did not become a professional, right? That's like how life goes at times. So the ability and the willingness to consistently work on developing some type of new skill, with the understanding that it is for a longer term perspective, is not the easiest thing for people to do. It's just not, right? The average person typically does not invest consistently into just learning something without seeing a full return on it. The average person, is not willing to commit the time. So going to that point, overcome the learning curve, and then diligently look for the proper resources. So I don't have it all figured out, fam. One thing that I'm very huge on, just throwing this point out there, is I take moments in the day when I can and just like shut my mind off to the endeavor that I'm pursuing per se, and really just spend time like in prayer, spend time allowing my mind to be renewed, so that I'm not so engrossed in my mental state, my emotional state of what I'm looking to do, looking to accomplish. I will break myself off from that. I'll get into a state of seeking truth, being in prayer, wanting to understand just clarity in general, so that I am not sideswiped. And then I just go back to my day after I've spent some time doing that. And that is a very huge thing that really, I believe, helps me remain sober, gives me some type of clarity of being steadfast, and then applying myself to learn whatever it is that I feel I am supposed to be learning at the time. So thank you for watching this maybe simple video, but definitely would love to know your thoughts, and see y'all on the next one.